This is a summary of the main points of the Wrightstown Community School District Co-Curricular Code of Conduct. For complete details, please refer to the comprehensive document, which can be found at the middle school, high school, and district office and the district web page. The Wrightstown Community School District Board of Education believes that extracurricular activities are an integral part of the total educational process to develop well-rounded young men and women in keeping with the district's mission of a quality education for every student. These activities are open to all students and will occur in a safe and encouraging environment where all participants can learn and grow. Through participation in these opportunities, students can have experiences and training in events not ordinarily obtainable in the general curriculum. Coaches and advisors take the opportunity to teach students lessons such as teamwork, responsibility, leadership, communication, respect, and fitness. The student who complies with this policy and the co-curricular code of conduct demonstrates a desire to dedicate themselves to self-improvement and a commitment to high personal standards, as well as to enhance the best interests of teammates, coaches, advisors, school, and community. Although co-curricular activities are a valuable part of the total educational experience, participation in co-curricular activities is a privilege, not a right. As a privilege, student participation in co-curricular activities carries with it certain responsibilities and expectations that promote growth toward becoming a responsible member of society. We expect students to be a credit to themselves, their family, school, and community. As such, all participants must abide by all rules and responsibilities at all times, 24 hours a day, 365 days per year, in order to continue participating in co-curricular activities. A parent guardian will be required to attend a code meeting and sign the code the first time each of their children enter middle school co-curricular activities, and again in the first time each of their children enter high school co-curricular activities. Middle and high school students will be required to annually attend a code of conduct meeting and sign the code. The Board of Education reserves the right to change or revise this code at any time. Publication. This code shall be part of the registration materials provided to students and will remain on file with the Wrightstown Community School District Board of Education. Copies will be available to all interested parties. Program oversight. The Wrightstown Community School District athletic and activities programs are the general responsibility of the 5 to 12 activities director who works with the building principals. Recommendations for program changes and filling coaching vacancies will be made by the activities director. Group 1 activities refers to all WIAA high school sports, high school dance, and middle school sports. Note: high school students may not participate in more than one school-sponsored sport at one time, both practice and competition. Group 2 activities refers to co-curricular activities not mentioned in Group 1, which are competitive or representative of Wrightstown Community School District in a more public venue. The procedure for joining any of the Wrightstown Community School District co-curricular activities is as follows. All students must be officially registered with our district. New students to the district must submit the proper identification records, a birth certificate, baptismal record, or immigration papers, to the office in order to be eligible for athletics. Students must have all eligibility paperwork submitted to the office prior to participation. Parents, guardians of students involved in co-curricular activities are required to attend a fall, winter, or spring informational meeting. WIAA. High school students participating in interscholastic athletics must also abide by the specific rules of eligibility as stipulated by the Wisconsin Interscholastic Athletic Association. Middle school. Only students who reside within the Wrightstown Community School District or are open enrolled into the Wrightstown Community School District and attend a school which serves students of Wrightstown Community School District are eligible to participate in the Wrightstown Middle School Athletic Program. These include the following schools: Wrightstown Middle School, St. Clair Catholic School, Wayside Zion Lutheran, Morrison Zion Lutheran, and St. John Lutheran. Eligibility requirements shall commence upon initial enrollment in the first co-curricular activity. High school and middle students must have passed all classes. Incomplete classes shall count as Fs until complete in the most recently completed quarter. In addition, a high school student must have obtained a minimum 1.67 GPA in the most recently completed quarter. High school. A student who did not pass all classes, incomplete classes shall count as Fs until complete, in the most recently completed quarter is academically ineligible to participate in co-curricular activities. Note: students may have up to 2 weeks to make up incomplete coursework. Once completed, provided the student is now meeting academic eligibility standards, he or she will immediately become eligible. A student who does not obtain a minimum 1.67 GPA in the most recently completed quarter is academically ineligible to participate in co-curricular activities. Eligibility may be regained after a student demonstrates passing work in all classes and a 1.67 GPA after the first 15 scheduled school days and nights into the next quarter. If after the 15-day period a student is still receiving a failing grade or grades, or a GPA less than 1.67, their grades may be rechecked after an additional 5 school days. Grades may be checked up to 3 times following the initial 15-day period. If a student is not passing after the 3rd grade check, they will be ineligible for the remainder of the quarter. An ineligible student cannot participate in any programs, contests, events during the period of ineligibility. Students may practice, rehearse, meet at the discretion of the coach, advisor, and activities director. Note: for all sports, the ineligibility period will be the lesser of, number 1, 21 calendar days beginning with the date of the earliest allowed competition in that sport, or, number 2, 1/3 of the maximum number of contests allowed in a sport. A student must be academically eligible to participate before they may start serving a code violation. While on suspension, the student may practice and attend competitions. Middle school. A student who did not pass all classes, incomplete classes shall count as Fs until complete, in the most recently completed quarter is academically ineligible to participate in co-curricular activities. Note: students may have up to 2 weeks to make up incomplete coursework. Once completed, provided the student is now meeting academic eligibility standards, he or she will immediately become eligible. Eligibility may be regained after a student demonstrates passing work in all classes after the first 10 scheduled school days and nights into the next quarter. If after the 10-day period a student is still receiving a failing grade or grades, their grades may be rechecked after an additional 3 school days. An ineligible student cannot participate in any programs, contests, events during the period of ineligibility. Students may practice, rehearse, meet at the discretion of the coach, advisor, and activities director. Note: for all sports, the ineligibility period will be the lesser of, number 1, 14 calendar days beginning with the date of the first scheduled competition in that sport, or 2, 1/3 of the maximum number of contests scheduled in that sport. A student must be academically eligible to participate before they may start serving a code violation. Unless an absence has been prearranged, doctor, dental appointment, etc., a student must be in school for the entire day to participate in any practice, rehearsal, or contest event. Note: family vacation, hunting, and driver's license exam would fall under this category, provided the office is notified at least 1 week prior to the date or dates of absence. In the event of shorter notification, this provision will be at the discretion of the activities director and/or the building principal. A student who is excused by a parent, guardian, for any part of the school day for being sick or ill will be ineligible to participate in a practice, rehearsal, and/or contest event for each activity that day. Note: the student will become eligible on the next day. Students with an unexcused absence on any part of the school day or whole day will be ineligible to participate in the next event for each activity in which the student is involved. Note: this will be considered a behavioral situation which may be held accountable to WIAA Behavioral Suspension Rules requirements. Coaches and advisors may determine additional standards. Additional standards will be in written form for distribution. Students are expected to follow all school rules and to display high standards of behavior, including good sportsmanship, respect for others, and use of appropriate language and dress at all times. Students must refrain from any conduct at any time which would reflect unsatisfactorily on him or her or the school. Conduct which would reflect unsatisfactorily on a student or on the school includes, but is not limited to, the following: a criminal offense or violation of an ordinance having a statutory counterpart; possession, use, sale, or purchase of any controlled substance, intoxicant, or drug paraphernalia. Controlled substances, intoxicants include, but are not limited to, alcoholic beverages. Note: many non-alcoholic beers do contain alcohol. Illegal drugs, mood-altering substances, anabolic steroids, or prescribed medications used in a manner other than that for which it was prescribed. Discrimination, harassment, violence, aggression, or threatening behavior to others. Vandalism, purchase, use, or possession of tobacco products in any form. Hosting, sponsoring, organizing, or attending a party, gathering at which alcohol or drugs are being used, consumed, or offered. Representation of themselves or others inappropriately or unlawfully on the internet. This would include blog sites, online profiles, instant messaging, Facebook, MySpace, etc. Any situation or problem that may arise that is not specifically covered above may be reviewed by the high school administration for possible action. Coaches' advisors may adopt appropriate rules and disciplinary action for violations of team activity rules. However, these rules must not be in conflict with the co-curricular code and must be approved by the building administration. Students who engage in any acts of willful, persistent, disruptive behavior, or any act in violation of or subject to penalty under Wisconsin state statutes, any local ordinances, and/or Wrightstown Community School District policies and/or procedures shall be subject to discipline as deemed appropriate by the administration, which may include a suspension for all co-curricular activities up to permanent prohibition. The district expressly reserves the right to impose a penalty it deems appropriate for each individual situation and case. Additionally, during a period of suspension, the student may be required to attend all practices and team functions to maintain his or her status as a team member, as determined by the code and coach advisor. Students who are present at a party or social gathering where alcohol or drugs are being illegally used or dispensed must leave immediately. Students who fail to leave immediately will be subject to a 2-contest suspension, Group 1, and or 10 hours of community service, Group 2. Report attendance to a coach or administrator before the end of the next school day. Encourage as many students, teammates as possible to leave safely. All students traveling to out-of-town activities will use district-provided transportation and are expected to return using district-provided transportation. Exceptions to this rule are, at coach's discretion, parents can sign out their own son or daughter. One of the values of athletics is to teach responsibility. This applies to the care of athletic equipment, as well as other school property. Equipment is a very costly item in the school budget. It is expected that students will take excellent care of their equipment. Each student is responsible for the school equipment issued. The student is financially responsible for all lost, misplaced, or stolen equipment. Each student will be responsible for the return of the original equipment issued. Substitutions will not be allowed. No school equipment and/or uniform may be worn during any physical education classes or any other period of exercise outside the time required for practice sessions and/or game situations. Any student who is found to be in unauthorized possession of any school equipment from any other competing school will be subject to the provisions of the co-curricular code. Students will not be allowed to participate in another sport until he or she has either returned or paid for all issued equipment. Parental involvement is very important for a successful school athletic and activity program. Parents are asked to abide by code expectations. Effective communication with parents is an extremely important part of having a successful team group. Coaches' advisors are expected to meet with parents prior to the start of the season to review their expectations of team group members, goals for the program, and goals for the season. Team group conduct and communication issues will be governed by the expectations handed out by each coach at the beginning of the season activity. This document will discuss team rules, practice expectations and schedules, letter criteria if applicable, communication questions, and conflict resolution guidelines. Questions about or concerns with the athletic and activity programs should be addressed with the person or people most directly involved. Typically, this begins with the coach's advisors. If the issue cannot be resolved with the coach, the second step is to contact the activities director, followed by the building principal. Any student who is injured during a practice or contest must report the injury to the coach advisor at once. If the injury requires medical assistance, the student athlete must report the accident to the activity athletic office as soon as the athlete is able to return to school and before returning to activity, practice, competition. Should an injury be discovered after the student athlete has returned home, the advisor coach should be contacted as soon as possible. The team trainer, under the supervision of the advisor coach, will handle minor emergency treatments. In the event of any serious injury, the nearest emergency medical service will be obtained. A violation has occurred when we receive a report from the police department, admission of the student, A signed report of the circumstances surrounding the violation submitted by a person who witnessed the violation, or visual evidence such as a photograph or video. The activity's director or principal shall investigate the referral and give the student involved an opportunity to present a response and to determine the validity of any complaint. It is important for all students to understand that involvement in athletic and co-curricular activities is a privilege. With the responsibility comes a commitment for the student to be truthful and forthcoming with information. A student who is under investigation is expected to be truthful about the violation being investigated, be forthcoming with all information, not be deceptive or untruthful, be cooperative. If a student does not comply with these expectations, the administration has within their authority to impose a greater level of consequence if it is determined that the student has lied, been deceptive, or untruthful prior to or after the determination of guilt and/or consequences. Failure to comply with the above conditions may result in full expulsion from the athletic and/or activity program for the duration of the student's future career. Where, after an investigation by the appropriate administrator and/or advisor, it is determined that a student in question did commit a violation, the student will be orally notified of the determination and penalty. Suspension takes effect at the time that the oral notification is given to the student or written notification is mailed to his or her address of record, whichever is first. An attempt will be made by school administration to inform the parents via phone after a decision has been made and the student has been informed of a code violation. The student and parent or guardian will be informed in writing of the nature of the accusation, decision, and consequence. Students in Group 1 and 2 activities who turn themselves in to school authorities and/or their head coach or advisor prior to the school obtaining any information and who do not attempt to deceive or mislead school officials shall receive a one-contest suspension from all Group 1 activities and/or 5 hours of school service for Group 2 activities. Any student involved in a co-curricular code violation for which there is a police report or involvement of a police department may not self-refer under this honesty reduction. A student will receive this penalty reduction only once during their middle high school career, and it must be used in connection with the first violation. Note, the honesty reduction may not be used to reduce a violation following the 2-year no violation clause. Any subsequent or future violations will be advanced to the next level of consequence. For example, a student who self-refers for their first offense and takes advantage of this provision would have their next offense be considered a second offense. Failure to abide by established rules shall result in withdrawal of the privilege to participate. For any violation, the following guidelines are established setting forth a minimum penalty that shall be imposed. The district expressly reserves the right to impose a penalty it deems appropriate for each individual situation and case. In addition, the policies and provisions of the Wrightstown Student Handbook in the student's grade level building supersede all code penalties. A participant suspended or expelled from school shall be barred from participation in co-curricular activities during that period of time. However, if the suspension is a shorter period of time than the co-curricular code dictates, the code penalty shall prevail. A student with suspension penalties must begin and end their respective season maintaining team member status in order for the suspension to be completed. The following are consequences for code violations for drug, alcohol, offense, use, possession, supplying drugs, alcohol, substances, hosting a drug, alcohol party, attendance where drugs, alcohol is used illegally. The following are consequences for code violations for tobacco use, possession, theft, vandalism, harassment, bullying, and other cases of misconduct. Excused absence, sick, not doctor, dentist, funeral, etc. Unexcused absence. Group 1 activities. Students will be suspended from all Group 1 activities that they are currently involved in at the time of the suspension or their next sports season if they are not currently out for a sport. Group 2 activities. Students will be suspended from all Group 2 activities that they are currently involved in at the time of the suspension or their next activity if they are not currently involved in an activity at the time of the violation. A student may appeal the disciplinary action to the superintendent if it is felt to be unfair or unjust. Requests for an appeal hearing shall be submitted to the superintendent by the student in writing within 5 days of the initial decision being handed down. All witnesses of the violation must be present at the appeals hearing. The accused student is entitled to have their parent, guardian, legal counsel, or any other person speak on their behalf. The activities director and building principal will be in attendance to present the information used in making the initial determination. Action taken by the superintendent will be documented in written form within 3 days of the appeals hearing. Decisions of the superintendent may be further appealed by the student in writing to the school board within 3 days of the receipt of such decisions. If not settled at the superintendent level, action by the board is final, subject only to further civil court action. Wisconsin Legal Authority references. United States Supreme Court reference. Please direct questions regarding the co-curricular code of conduct to the 5 to 12 activity director.